Hello, welcome to Sterlo's Wrap.
Oh, straight run!
Bang, take advantage of it.
Oh, stand and applause.
It's a stupid question.
It's
I
not.
have far greater expectations of you than that.
Oh, yes. He's gone all the way.
Now, he's popular, he's a great leader, he's the mentality of this football team.
Oh, and another one from Cleary.
Well, it doesn't get much better, does it?
Absolutely outstanding, and the finish is just as good.
It's rugby league, isn't it?
G'day, welcome to Sterlo's Wrap of round 23. We must be doing something right because we're here in the big studio. How are you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, no, I'm
I feel like this
fairly
studio's far
comfortable
too
here.
big for us.
There's a reason for that. No, I'm really good. A couple of weeks out from finals football. Liking what I'm seeing from some clubs, and we've still got a battle for the top 8, so that's nice as well, and that obviously keeps the interest for the last month. One thing I do want to get into, Matt, I'm not a big fan of rule changes. You know that, and we've had 1,000 of them. The best, the number one, greatest innovation the game has brought in, the 40-20. It is the perfect opportunity for risk and reward, and you don't often see something perfect in our game, but this from Adam Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
That's as good as it gets. Like, have a look at that. The inch perfect, just over the head, just in the field of play.
One step before he kicked the ball.
Almost kicking.
Almost backwards, wasn't he?
Kicking, off the back foot, and that's not easy to do. So, it's just a great. It's the kind of play in a game that can change momentum, can turn defence into attack straight away, and no one's done it better than Adam Reynolds, and that kick there, that's the best we'll ever see.
Yeah, absolutely. They were on fire really in that game, South Sydney, and just calling it, you got the impression that the South juggernaut might roll over the top of Penrith, but that brought the best out of the Panthers, and we saw them really dig in with their defence in particular.
Yeah, I was patting myself on the back because I tipped South, and after 30 minutes, I'm thinking, how good am I going here? The problem for South Sydney is that in that...
Did you go the early crow?
I did. I went, don't go the early crow. Should have learnt by now. That first half hour, they owned the game, South Sydney, and they looked really good. The problem was that they didn't score enough points in that period of time. And then in the 10 minutes leading into the break, well, these two tries here from Penrith, just magnificently orchestrated. What a ball from Nathan Cleary. Great work from Capewell, who was out in the centres.
What a kick.
Yeah. And Momirovski, that's the first of two absolute beauties. This one here is even better because it had to be more deft. Great pass there from Liam Martin, and then Stephen Crichton, the second time in the game that he'd taken one in above his head just with the one arm. So to go in so tight at half-time, it turned the momentum Penrith's way, and as it turned out, they won the second half. After conceding 12 points, they scored 25 unanswered points. So a great performance from Penrith in regards to, it was described as a finals-like atmosphere up against one of the best sides in the competition who were looking to win, their 10th game in a row or something like that.
So they'd already won 10.
Yeah, so they were up against a side in form. Nathan Cleary coming back into this side, obviously makes all kinds of differences.
The difference it made there is that they didn't panic. And that's what we saw from Penrith earlier in the year. They've conceded leads on a few occasions, particularly early in the season, but they knew they got the game to get themselves back into it. And with Cleary back in, there was a calmness about what they did.
He's their security blanket, isn't he? Everybody feels good about themselves. And that's with your great players and your most significant players in the dressing room before a game. When you look around and see that he's there getting changed, I did it with Ray Price. Whenever I saw Ray Price, I'm thinking, everything's going to be okay. We're going to be all right. And Penrith has that same effect in regards to Nathan Cleary. And I think when you look at South Sydney, who will learn a lot from this game and know that they've still got a little bit of ground to make up, I think what was summed it up for me was the pass from Cody Walker here, late-ish in the game. He hasn't thrown a bad pass in months. But this here, that's a reflection of the defence that he'd come up against all game. I said before that Cody Walker is the great ball player, and the great ball players in our game, they make decisions based on what the defence do. On that occasion, the defence, they were a brick wall once again, and it was almost a frustration pass. So to me, that kind of summed up the kind of opposition that South Sydney are up against in this Penrith team, who are now out of their bumpy road coming out of Origin football, as they were always going to be.
Phil Gould said after the game and on social media that South can't beat Penrith again when they meet in the finals, week 1.
No, it's a big statement.
Are you in agreement?
No, not necessarily. No, I think that, as I say, I think South will learn from that game, and I think South Sydney, if they put together a good 80 minutes performance, I know Gus's criticism of the Rabbits has been, can they back up the great attack they have with an 80-minute intense defensive performance? I think the coach will learn from that, and they'll be a more formidable opposition next time they meet.
Melbourne Storm, 34 over the Titans, 20. That was our Thursday night game here on Nine's Wilder Sports, and the Titans flew out of the blocks. Still, I didn't quite go the early crow in this one.
No.
But sitting at home, you're thinking, wow, Melbourne have rested players here. And I think the Titans might have upset Melbourne a couple of times in the last few years as well in similar circumstances, but it wasn't to be.
No, it wasn't. And as you say, that Melbourne went in without no Brandon Smith, no Justin Olam. We still haven't seen Nelson Aso for Solomona. So, you know, personnel-wise, in regards to the 17 that they'll put out there for finals football, it didn't look like that. Gold Coast Titans are a dangerous football team. But the Melbourne Storm, said a couple of times over the weekend, that the Storm and I think the Penrith, they have this great ability to absorb pressure, not let the scoreboard get out of whack when they are on the back foot. And when the momentum turns, however that comes about, generally they force it, maybe through some defensive effort. Straight away they can put the pressure back on the opposition. There's no lull in there. Like most sides, when they had to absorb a lot of pressure, it's almost like they have to take a breath and, OK, we'll put some settlers just to, So Melbourne Storm, no, they're straight at you. And the man who leads the way in that department is Cameron Munster, who I think by his lofty standards, he's had a good season. We've seen patches of his very, very best.
It's had quite a few weeks, though.
He owned the second half here. And this is an ominous sign for all teams in the competition, because when he is invested in the game and in the performance, then he can do things in matches that other players cannot. Completely unpredictable, hard to defend against because you don't quite know what he's going to do. He's got that carry. He's stronger, deceptively strong, his ability to push away from players. And to me, coming out of this, that's the most poignant thing for the Melbourne Storm, is that Cameron Munster looks like he's getting set for finals football.
And he's a finals player, isn't he?
Very much. He's a big game player, no doubt about that. The other thing I like about the Melbourne Storm, it's kind of acknowledged that it's almost harder to score from 10 metres into your opponent's try line than outside of that, because the defences are so stacked. Fullback plays up in the line. Melbourne Storm have a very, very good strike rate, and it's their ability to recognise the weakness in the defensive line. Jared Wallace, going back, will end up on his heels, and straight away, Harry Grant sees that and takes him on. Now here we see David Fifita going back turned. Cameron Munster on this occasion sees that and goes straight at him. They react very, very quickly to where there is a weakness in the opposition, and that's just a couple of examples of it, and that's why they score so many tries with one passes from dummy half or out of dummy half themselves.
Well, look, you haven't played since 1991, but you've still got it, Pete.
Yeah.
You can't hide anything from you.
Nobody else wants it, see? That's why I've still got it.
What about that? Dead-eye Sterling. He picks up on everything. I'll tell you what, he's happy today too, because Parramatta finally won one, 32-16 against the Cowboys. It was something. It's 2 points.
Well, it had to be a win up against a side who's struggled as much as Parramatta have in North Queensland. And look, it was, it wasn't smooth. It lacked rhythm. It wasn't that impressive, but it's 2 competition points. It still puts pressure on the Roosters and Manly in regards to a top 4 finish. We know they've got a tough run home, but this win was as important as any 2 competition points they've picked up this season. And there were things to like out of it. I liked the opening 15 minutes. I thought that their use of the football, both ends of the field, were impressive. Now, this is simple stuff. And that's what I've been looking for, to be able to pick up those kind of metres without taking many risks, but without getting belted one out in tackle. So there was a lot to like. Good work here. Sevo to get the ball back.
Yeah.
Firstly, backwards, because that would have been easy to throw a forward pass to Wonga Blake. But then they lost their way just through too many errors. Their completion rate just plummeted. But against Melbourne next week, the one thing that you have to do against the Storm is start well. You've got to get out of the blocks, because they will. In fact, if Craig Bellamy has had a criticism of his side, is they haven't been as good in that department as the reputation they've built, but Parramatta next week need to make a good start, so they need to turn that first 15 minutes we saw last weekend into 40 minutes and get themselves into the game and get themselves a little bit of ascendancy, you know, through some ball movement, but through some aggression and some intensity. So I liked what I saw there.
I'll tell you, I like what I saw from Will Penasini in his second first-grade game. He's been an emerging player for a couple of seasons now, Pete, but to come in after not playing much football recently, he was terrific.
Yeah, I've really got a rap on this young man, and you know, he's bided his time, but you know, in his second appearance, he showed that he belongs in this company. I think he has to be there, Matt, for the rest of the year. Whatever games Parramatta are going to be playing, this young man here has to be a part of that. Now, Blake Ferguson comes back into the side next week. I think it's a really important decision that Brad Arthur has to make in regards to what side does he play players. I would really prefer to see Penasini and Hayes Dunster united on that same side. It worked against Canberra. They got beaten 12-10, but they defended really well. I thought they defended
solid
well
there.
here. Yeah, they've got a good understanding. They communicate well, which means that we would see Wonga Blake alongside Blake Ferguson. They were separated early on, but I think that the plus of Penasini and Dunster together outweighs a perceived weakness between those other two players, and that's why they were split earlier in the season.
Yep. 1 point thriller, Manly over the Raiders, 19-18. It's another one that got away from Canberra.
Got away to the good start, and a great performance here from Manly to win, coming from behind against a tough football team, and no Tom Trbojevic involved. So they get a lot of confidence out of that. And so many players are getting raps, but the one I think is kind of deserved more is Daly Cherry Evans. And when you talk about assessing other playmakers and halfbacks in the competition of those top teams, Daly hasn't received that much. These are his last 4 kicks. That was a brilliant kick to force a restart. He follows that up with a pinpoint kick for Surina to score next to the posts. He then kicks to the corner with 3 minutes to go, and that's where you want to be handing over the football. Saab is the good target, didn't get there to contest that, but it was still a good result. And then he just nails it. He puts them 7 in front. Now, I know that the Raiders scored 6 points very, very late, but that won them the game.
Yep.
So his game management, I think, is as good as any other number 7 in the competition. And whilst Tom Trbojevic and others are getting so many raps, when you come down to these big end-of-season games and you've got to get plays right, especially your last tackle plays, Cherry Evans will do that for Manly.
They've missed a couple of great opportunities in the last month, Canberra, to seal a place inside the 8. They're still in contention for it, but they're going to do it tough, I'd reckon. Yeah,
the thing I liked about Canberra the other night is, the players missing, and when you hear Phil Gould, again, talk about the development of a club, much of that has to do with the development of players, especially guys that you bring in, and that's how you build a club. Penrith are the prime example. So many of those players began their first-grade career at the Penrith club. Look at Canberra. The back line the other night in this game, only Jordan Rapana made his first-grade debut at another club. So Shields on the wing. Tomoko here was tremendous, combining beautifully to score there. Bailey Simonson, Jack Whiten, of course. Jared Croker may come back into the side. He's a local junior also. And Sam Williams is doing a really good job, forced into that playmaking role after the English halfback went home. So there are green shoots there, I guess is what I'm trying to say in regards to Canberra, that you're bringing them through. And what do you smile at?
Green shoots?
Yeah, green
nice.
shoots. Yeah, that's the green machine. So they should have green shoots, shouldn't they? So that's, they got beaten. They may not play finals this season, but the players that are coming through are developing that club and what it means to the players.
Yeah. They should have beaten Melbourne a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Inexperience cost them that game. They had that one with an early lead, and look, you go back to that period in the season where they were dreadful in second halves. It's a case of what could have been for the Raiders. Saturday, Sharks 50 over the Tigers 20. Michael Maguire said post-game that wasn't the performance that they were looking for. I think that's an understatement. Yeah. No, I've described this one as a frantic game from both clubs, to be honest. Tigers scored the first try through Cheekham.
But the Sharks on the back of that, they always look to have the ascendancy, but just couldn't quite get away on the scoreboard as much as their domination in general play demanded. Look, they scored 50 points. That's great, and especially when it comes to differential, that certainly helps, adding 30 to that. But it was a frantic game, a lot of passes thrown that shouldn't have been thrown. I thought the best player in the field was Braden Trindle. Now, next season, obviously, no Chad Townsend and no Sean Johnson. I think this young man has basically said to the coach, who will be Craig Fitzgibbon, I'm your man. I'm your starting number 7. Put me alongside Nico Hines and I'll get the job done for you. There's a real maturity about his game, a real assuredness, and that's exactly what you want. And I just thought that...
It's a bit of flair too.
Yeah, he's got... There's some kind of X factor about him. Like, he's not going to race away 60 metres and score a try for you, but he's got a nice little arsenal in his game. And I thought he was great. He's starting to build up a really nice combination with Will Kennedy as well. And Will Kennedy, he's in an era of great number ones. He doesn't get spoken about much, but he's quality. Yeah. So I really like what I saw from Braden Trindle. The unfortunate thing for the Sharks, obviously, is the injury to Ronaldo Mulatalo. Got over for a couple of tries here. Such an innocuous injury, or the way to pick it up. It was just, you see the elbow there of Tommy Talau, completely accidental. And obviously it just made contact in the wrong spot. I think there's a couple of breaks in there. And that has repercussions for Cronulla as to how they handle this. Do they bring Will Chambers into the lineup and push Connor Tracy out onto the wing where he's deputised really well?
Well, they had Moylan back on the bench too for that game.
That's right. So, he's... and, they've used Talakai in the centres with some degree of success as well. It's a shame that they'll have to make that type of decision, but there are a few options open for Josh Hannay for the remaining games.
Newcastle just home against Canterbury, 22-16. That just about wraps up a finals place for the Knights. A few anxious moments there in the end, but they got there.
Yeah, it wasn't a great performance from them, but it was an important 2 competition points. I think that confirms their spot in the 8. They finish with the Gold Coast and Brisbane. I think they win one of those games at least. So I think they'll be playing finals football. I get excited about them and then they let me down, and then I get excited again and then they let me down. They've got a quality squad. Really like what I see, and if they put it together, they can hurt any team. But they just come up with too many ordinary performances, and you can't do that against the best sides. So they'll play finals football. If they can play their best football, that could take them a little way through that last month. But we haven't seen them put together 4 or 5 quality games all season. Why should that change now?
So the one player that Canterbury really need to look at in terms of signing next year is Jeremiah Nanai. Because if they signed Jeremiah Nanai, that would mean that Jeremiah
was a Bulldog. And
I forgot to mention it.
I'm going to be cliche, and I'm going to follow up that, and I hope it happens because he's a good friend of mine.
Good fun. Now, we're not going to be able to do the Sunday games because the reason we're in the big studio is because we're recording this after the Sunday footy show. Now, as everyone's had to do with COVID, it's been a bit of a juggle-a-thon around here, which means we're having to record our award-winning, soon-to-be Logie award-winning Sterlo's Wrap on Sundays. But for analysis of the Sunday games, you'll be able to watch the final whistle. So you'll be able to see that on our digital platforms as well, where we'll have great dad jokes like the one we just told.
And by the time you see this, not much happened in those other 2 games anyway, so it worked out well.
That's right. All right. Have a good week.